Hello everybody, Robin here at Toadstool Tarot, and I've decided today to combine two video responses. One is to hashtag Forever Decks, created by Lark and Legend channel, and the other one isn't a hashtag yet, but it's a VR to the Hermit's Cave, and I'm slapping a hashtag on it, decks on my desk. And these are sort of combined. The reason is that, well, first of all, I don't have a desk. I have, next to me, sharing my bed, 3 nested trays. And they're stacked one on top of the other, and they're all within hand's reach. So it's an alternative to a desk for me because it's where I store the decks within arm's reach that I reach for the most. And many of those decks are on my Forever Decks list, which means as of this moment, I'd never part with these decks. I haven't counted my collection in a while, but I think it's somewhere around 200. It can't get much bigger because there's no more storage space on my shelves or my trays. So anyway, let's start in no particular order. Yeah, okay, we're going to go with the decks on the desk most used. At the moment, the one I reach for the most, I keep in this little purple velvet bag. And this is on MakePlayingCards.com. It's from the Japanese Keishobu Tarot. And it is called, I believe, the Vintage Blonde Old Fellow Tarot. It's bridge size. It's got linen stock, beautiful backs, and vintage kind of coloring or shading, and just a wonderful deck to work with. I love the size. I love the feel of it. I love the images. It's a combination of RWS minors with sort of Marseille type majors, I guess, kind of. And it's a limited palette, but I really love it. And it's one that I use the most. As of the last several weeks when I got it, I do have the deck. This is based on the Keishobu Tarot from, I believe, 1973 in Japan. But I found the cardstock unusable. It's very stiff and large, and no, I don't think it's actually large. I think it's regular tarot size, but I just don't like the cardstock on it. And I love the stock on this, so it's more usable now, and I use it all the time, every day. It reads really well for me. It's really on the nose. So that is the Vintage Blonde Old Fellow Tarot, which unfortunately I don't have a box to keep this in. It came shrink wrapped, and there's not a box designed for this size. This is supposedly bridge size cards, but because it's a tarot, it's too thick for the little plastic bridge size boxes that I get from Make Playing Cards. I suppose I could store in a larger tin from them, but the cards would rattle around because they won't fill the box. I mean, I guess I could actually add some other things in there, like maybe a folded spread cloth or a crystal or something, but for now, they're in this little bag. They're the closest to me in my bed, you know, within an arm's reach away. And if I go out to a cafe or something, I've been taking them with me. The next one on the list is the Tarot Nova, also known as the Running Press Tarot, or just Tarot, published by Running Press. Comes in a little box like this. But I'm keeping it in a drawstring black velvet bag. And these are unusual card size. It's a little tight in the bag at the moment because I've shoved the guidebook in here, and I don't usually use it, but I've been wanting to read with that. And they are beautifully colored little odd shaped cards, not quite square, not quite rectangular. Well, I guess they're rectangular, but they're not quite bridge size. But I love that they're sort of glossy and black and have these bright pop little illustrations on them. And they are sort of RWS, although sometimes the images are a little bit of a stretch. It's an out-of-print deck now, but you can still find it. And I just really love the colors and the little cute pop images. And how the corners are all in different colors depending on whether it's a major or which suit of the minors it happens to be. So that is the Tarot Nova, or I call it the Running Press Tarot. I guess they just call it the Tarot, or Tarot. Tarot, the Complete Kit is the name on the box. Next, I have, well, next is my own tarot, the Open Face Tarot, and these are the plastic boxes I'm talking about from MPC. And this one is a forever tarot because I created it and I really, relate to it. These are my images that I channeled onto cards. And they have I have several versions, and the small size version without titles on the cards is my favorite. That's my forever deck. And because this is a majors only 22 cards, it actually leaves room in this little box for a second majors only deck that I've done called the Toadstool Tarot, which probably I wouldn't put in my forever tarot, but just happens to be along with the Open Face. They share a box together because they fit perfectly for storage. And so that is also within reach because it's in the same box. Let's see. It's a perfect fit if anybody's buying these at MPC. This is a good a la carte item, these little plastic hinge boxes, and both decks will fit in this. Next is, well, at the moment I've been reaching for this deck. This is another one that came without a box, just shrink wrapped, I believe. And I got it off of Etsy. And it's an odd size. These are a little bit bigger or wider than regular tarot cards, and so they don't really fit a box or a tin. So I actually had an extra bag that I could store them in. And this one confuses me. It's an AI deck I found on Etsy. It's a cat themed deck, but sort of abstracted cats. And I've seen it both referred to as the Bastet Tarot and the Cat Tarot. And I think it's just called the Cat Tarot, but it's created by a company or with the name Bastet Tarot, because I've seen two other decks called Cat Tarot and another one called Bastet Tarot, both on there. So there's some confusion. Those are the backs, and these are the fronts. And I'm still uncertain how I feel about AI decks, but I love the color palette in this one. I love the abstract images, and I love that it has a very nighttime feel to it. It's not an easy read unless you're familiar with the titles of the cards. You can go from there. I generally read intuitively, and I haven't quite found my way into this deck intuitively yet, but I'm loving the artwork, the colors, graphics, and so I'm just kind of enamored with this at the moment. And we'll see, time will tell if this remains a forever deck or not, but at the moment it is one that I still reach for. I've only had it maybe a month or a little more. So that is possibly the Cat Tarot by Bastet Tarot company, creator. And it came from Turkey, so who knows what the deal is there. I had no booklet with it, and so I have no more information than that. Next is the Lunne Tarot, which I have in another folding box. I've shown this quite a few times before. It's got these beautiful backs and wonderful, warm, soft, friendly images in a very soft pastel sort of palette. And this is available at makeplayingcards.com and also, I believe, Printers Studio. Two different versions. And let's see. The next one is, where did I put it? Is it this one? This is the problem with taking cards out of their original boxes and storing them in other containers. And sometimes I switch around what's inside, and then I don't remember what's in there unless I label it on the outside. This one at the moment is storing this deck because it's a little bit of an odd size. This is the Tarot for All Ages. And it's got some wonderfully stylized graphics that I really love. And some of the cards have been renamed. For instance, this is, I believe, the Lover's card, renamed as Unity. So it's, I think it's still in print, and it's reasonably priced, or rather cheap. And I think it's kind of misnamed as Tarot for All Ages, because I think people think of it as a children's deck, and I don't. Here's another one. This is the Devil card, which is renamed as Greed. So there's maybe a little bit of an adjustment for working with this deck and getting used to some of the renames. The suits are standard, I believe. And yeah, you know, cups, wands, swords, and what did I leave out? Coins or pentacles. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think they say on the cards. Yeah, oh, on the courts they're labeled. On the regular cards they're not labeled, except for the majors. But the courts are renamed. We have Apprentice, and for the page, Steward for the knight, Guardian for the queen, and Sage for the king. So I don't usually like it when decks rename cards like that, but I do love the images on this deck. I've not been using it too much lately. I wouldn't say it's fallen out of favor, but others have like kind of taken its place that I've gotten more recently, and I tend to use more often. So those are kind of, oh, one more. There's the Harmonious Tarot. And I actually have several versions of this, but I tend to use this one the most. It's in a little linen box. It's a mini version, and I use it. I take it with me in my shoulder bag when I go out, and that's why I use it more. It's a pretty little sort of Art Nouveau, kind of pre-Raphaelite images. The smaller version is a little bit hard to see. You need good eyes or glasses to take in all the details. But I'm so familiar now with these cards from the larger version that I can work with the smaller one. And these have a lot of floral designs to them. They're illustrated by Walter Crane, who was an illustrator from the late 1800s, who did a lot of children's books. That's the Harmonious Tarot. And I have 3, maybe 6 more to show you. No, I didn't want this to get too long. Now I'm going to go more towards the some of my older Forever decks. And at this point I'm going to go through 4 RWS decks. And the first one that used to be number 1 on my list was the RWS 2.0, and this is absolutely gorgeous for the colors in it. And this is one that I refer to when I'm uncertain about a symbol in Pixie's artwork, Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork, because this deck, out of all the RWS decks that I own, is better at showing or revealing the detail in all the line work. So, for instance, in the stained glass window up here, there is the word PAX, which I don't believe is always readily viewable on a regular RWS deck. So, yeah, and some of the cards are a little busier, and even the busy cards, you can see every little detail in this deck. So this one I mostly these days refer back to if I'm in doubt or question about some teeny tiny little detail somewhere in the artwork. I want to double check. So that's the RWS 2.0. Next is this is an unavailable deck, but this is my absolute favorite RWS deck. It's the RWS RL20V2. And it's got an orange roses and lilies back. The cardstock is wonderful. It has a vintagey feel, but no copyrights. It looks very much like the Centennial, Smith-Waite Centennial. It has that sort of vintagey feel. The borders are pretty bright white, but within there you get sort of these textures of the Centennial, sort of modeled isn't the right word, I don't think, but, and the camera's probably not picking it up, but there's sort of a, my lighting's really bad. Yeah, it has a real vintagey feel, and this just is the best for me. So actually this is kind of like, if I'm going RWS, or this is like number one on my list. In fact, I would say if I was running out of the house, I would take this, the Blond Oldfellow Tarot, and my Open Face Tarot. Those are the top three I'd probably run out of the house with. Next we have the Radiant Wise Spirit, which I didn't like for the longest time because there's a little error on one of the cards, a little flaw, and then I found another way to read it that still works, that incorporates the flaw, and I love it now. This one has a kind of vintagey olive oil kind of feel. It's like dark, kind of moody coloring to the deck, and it almost feels like the cards have been dipped in olive oil, and there's just something really earthy and nice about it. And I love the glossy cards. I don't always like glossy cards, but sometimes they really work for me, and I like them on this deck. I like the borderless quality of the art, and I absolutely love the box, and the guidebook for it is one of the best I've ever read. I believe it's written by Sasha Graham, and yeah, so I love that. The last RWS I'm going to share, this is another one that's like an odd size. It's sort of a mini, but I don't have mini boxes to fit this in, so I do have a little drawstring bag, and this is the CS Tarot Mini, I think, or I'm not sure what it's called, but it's at makeplayingcards.com, and this has just really, really beautiful textured images with sort of sandy colored borders. And this one is in here because it's the RWS that I carry with me in my shoulder bag when I go out to cafes. I usually carry 2 or 3 different decks in there, but if I want an RWS, this is the one I've been using most recently outside of home. And let's see. Okay, next is the Carte Postale. This is a deck that's a little on, I almost want to say on the spooky side. It's compiled from vintage photographs, and the palette isn't my favorite, but it kind of reminds me of if you bought a box of old vintage photographs or tintypes or whatever at a flea market, and has a kind of a Victorian era feel of it. And I think it probably would be particularly good for working with doing ancestral work. So it has a kind of a spookiness to it for me. Here's the death card with a ghostly apparition in it. It's used as old photographs. I love that. This is probably my favorite 7 of Swords card in any deck. The sneaky guy peeking around the corner. So that is the Carte Postale Tarot. I can't remember what country this came from. I want to say Finland or somewhere over in Norway. I can't recall. Latvia? Ukraine? Somewhere over thereabouts. Carte Postale. And then this is an old classic that I love. The Golden Tarot by Cat Black. This is another box that I love. And this is one that's like, oh my gosh, it's like a trip to an art museum. And I traded this. This is I believe this is the most recent version with glossy cards. I had the matte version, but somehow I like the glossy better. It's got gilt edges, which I don't usually like, but I feel like this suits the museum quality art historical imagery, which is one of the best collage decks I've ever seen. Very well handled, computer collaged renderings from a whole slew of different classic paintings in art history. And the book does identify elements from each card and what paintings they came from. And they're not, strictly speaking, familiar paintings, but they all have a familiar feel. I guess what I mean is you can't just look at a paint. You might say, oh, that looks like such and such artist, but I don't know that any of these are actual paintings that you've seen. Well, actually, they've all been altered by collaging together elements from different paintings. So, but I didn't recognize any of the images from previous paintings that I've seen. And yeah, I just really like this a lot. So it's funny, I mean, this went on, what is it, we're almost at the half-hour mark, and I think that's the end of it. Oh no, one more. Nora, when I started off, I thought, oh, I'm only going to have 3 or maybe 5 decks in this, you know, forever decks, or forever tarot. What was it? What did I call it? Where's my identification card, my note card? Well, you'll see on the tag when I'm done. Oh, here it is. Forever decks. Sorry. Yeah, forever decks. I thought, oh, I only have 3, possibly stretch to 5. But then when I started looking at these trays, these storage trays, these my decks on my desk, there were more of them that I use. So this last one is a Lenormand. It's the Enchanted Lenormand by Caitlin Matthews. And this one has a kind of a almost Grimm's fairy tale feel to it. I really love the illustration style, and I love the way that they're framed in these little crystal balls. And I just find this one a joy to work with. I only have a handful of Lenormand decks. I actually created one myself. But this is the one that I use the most when I reach for Lenormand, and the one that I have the easiest time working with. And yeah, so it also has maybe the best book on Lenormand that I own, or that I've come across. So there you have it, the Forever decks from Lark and Legend, and decks on my desk from the Hermit's Cave. And thanks for being patient with me. We're in 32 minutes. I'm going to let you go, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.